Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Android development training series. In this part I'm going to be showing you the layout and UI of the Eclipse IDE, and we're going to walk you through creating a new project and explaining all the different parts of an Android project. In part 3 we'll actually start developing. Okay, so when you open Eclipse for the first time you might have a welcome pane. I covered that in the last video, but just in case it's still there, you're just going to want to click the X next to welcome, which would appear right here if I had it. In this case, I don't. I am presented with the main page, I guess you could call it. Over here we have the Project Explorer, where if we have a project, it will show up here along with every file and other items of information in here. Also, multiple projects will also show up here. Right here, when we are actually working on programming and doing the code, this is where your code will be. Up here you'll have tabs for different Java files you have open. Down here, this will change when we start actually Android developing. You'll have a console and a logcat view. Those will be explained later on. Let's start out by creating a new Android project. So we're going to right click in the Project Explorer, mouse over New, and left click on Project. We're going to type Android right here and double click on Android Project. Okay, project name, we're just going to name it Hello World. This is not this is not your actual application name. This is just going to show up in the Project Explorer as a reference to you. And okay, let's move down. Here we have the contents. We are going to create a new project in Workspace, which my workspace is actually right here. We are also going to leave everything else just default. Here we have the build target. This is the API level we're going to be targeting. Basically, if you're going to be developing for a Honeycomb tablet, you're going to want to select Android 3.0. If you're going to be developing for anything less than that, these are all Android phone OSs, and this is the actual tablet OS. There's different APIs added in each one of these. So if your target is Android 1.6, for example, I cannot use any APIs from up here. They will throw errors. If my note that's different than the minimum SDK version. If I have Android 1.6 select or 3.0 selected in my minimum SDK version, actually no. Never mind that. Never mind. Anyway, let's get back on track. Moving down, we're just going to select what we want in the build target. So I'm going to start with Android 3.0, which is the Honeycomb tablet version. In this case, the application name is going to be Hello World, as this is generally what you start with when you start developing in a new language or pretty much new anything. It's just pretty basic. Package name. If you have ever programmed Java, which I hope you have if you're listening to this series, you'll know what a package name is. If you don't, a package is basically a bunch of folders that hold the information. So in this case, we're going to name it com.micmic and .hello. The activity is like a main Java file. An activity is something in Android that it's a Java file that's ran. I would highly recommend running through the development guide, just the basics of it, on the developer.android.com website, as this explains everything you need to know. I would definitely read What is Android and the Application Fundamentals. These go through pretty much everything that you need to know, what an activity is, what a service is, content providers, and broadcast receivers. Down the line, we'll eventually get into all these, or should, but it helps to have a background knowledge of what they are. I'll be referring to these many times, and if you don't know what they are, you're going to be very lost. Let's continue. So let's name our activity main in this case, since it's going to be our main and only one in a very simple app. You could have multiple of these. They're usually made for different views. Okay, minimum SDK version. Since we are going to be on the API level 11, I'm just going to set this to 11. You can set it to anything lower than what you have. Okay, finish. What it's going to do is it's going to generate an Android project for us. Down here, it's going to show what it's doing. We're just going to wait for this to finish. As I said earlier, the Android SDK and development stuff runs quite slow at times. There we go. It's almost finished. Okay. So, instantly we're presented with an error. And now it's gone. If that ever happens to you when that error is there, what you're gonna only if the error is there. If you do it without an error, it's gonna screw up your whole project. But if you have some kind of a random error that is not with code, it's just something that doesn't make sense, you're gonna want to go project, clean, and then clean project selectable and select the project and hit clean. That will generally fix errors with like XML files that are screwy. Okay, so I'm just going to open these important folders. Here we have our source. This is our main project, our main Java file. We'll get more into what the code actually means later. We have our generated files right here. You never modify this directly. Never open the R file, the r.java file, and edit it. It will screw up your whole project, and the Android development platform will freak out. It even says up here, do not modify. Okay, so I'll just get rid of that. Okay, down here we have our drawables, which is basically resource files for images. And here we have our layout and values. Our layout is our actual layout of the app. Android uses XML for its layouts, but you can also use pure Java for layouts. I find it's easier to use XML as it keeps your project clean. And for some reason it's running really slow today. There we go. So up here in this you have if you double click on this tab, it'll make it all big screen. Make it a little bigger here. You have different screen sizes that you can pick from. If we're going to be developing, say, for the Motorola Zoom tablet, we can increase the screen size and set it to landscape or portrait. Themes, these are pretty self-explanatory. If you ever use Android, you know what a title bar is. It's this little thing up here. Otherwise, there's just a bunch of things that you can look through or do a Google search on and look through them. Okay, don't mess with this. Here is all the stuff you can place on your layout. There's lots of different things. If you've read anything up on the application fundamentals and what is Android, you'll know what some of these are. How Android draws its views is very important. Basically, what it does is you have a layout, which is like here a linear layout. If you know what the word linear means, it's stacked. It's in an order. So whatever order you have, that's the order it's going to show up in. So let's say I have two text views. Let's just copy and paste this. They will show up in that exact order. So if I set this string, if I were to make this text view down here, right here, say number 1, and I placed it at the bottom, it would be at the bottom of the list saying number 1. If I moved it up here, number 1 would be up here. Okay. So that's how it draws its views, and then basically everything is dropped on top of it. So for ease of use, they made it just drag and drop a button on, and there you go. Like I said earlier, if I move this button elsewhere with cut and paste, put it above here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Put it right there. In the graphical layout, it will move up. When you're developing, you will for sure not only use the graphical layout. It is not the most powerful thing in the world. You're going to be switching back and forth between actually editing the XML and using the graphical layout. Okay, let's close that. No, I don't want to save it. Okay, click here to get back to the out of full screen mode. Here we have our strings.xml, which is in Android. You can have when you're programming Java, you have a string variable, like string hello equals hello. Basically, what a strings file is holding all those strings. It's used in your layout file to reference. So, like if you want to have a text box or a text or a button say have like hello in it, you would set the resource ID to this. I'll get more into this later down the road when we start actually doing development. Android manifest. If you read, which I strongly cannot stress enough to the point that you read this stuff. What is Android and application fundamentals? If you read this, you will know exactly what is going on, especially application fundamentals. Read it. Okay, back here. Again, you have graphical editing, but you also have the actual XML. The XML file defines everything. If you're going to have more than one activity, it has to be defined in here. If you're going to use, say, a permission, if you're going to use the internet in your app, you have to have the permission and internet. If something is not working, like if you added a whole new app activity into your app and you try to run it and it's not working, make sure you have it in your manifest. Okay, so that is basically everything we need to know about Eclipse and programming, or programming in Eclipse. Our next series will deal with creating a Hello World application and playing around with some XML and Java coding. Thanks, and goodbye.